Imagine a chilly autumn morning with pale golden sunlight streaming through the bathroom window. You're standing in front of the mirror, picking up your familiar comb to brush your hair, and suddenly your heart skips a beat. That's exactly what Linda, a friend of mine who lives in the suburbs of Chicago, experienced. She confided that seeing more and more strands of hair left on the comb made her feel like she was gradually losing a part of her identity, her femininity, not just a simple matter of aging. Hello, I'm Alan. If you've ever felt that anxiety when glancing at your hair in the rearview mirror while driving to the Costco supermarket, or sighed quietly while washing your hair, then this conversation is for you. You know, the real culprit is usually not the shampoo bottle you use, but a silent change inside the body related to hormones and androgen receptors. But there's a paradoxical irony. Why does the same hormone cause the hair on Linda's crown to fall out, yet can stimulate it to grow in places she doesn't want at all? Like on her face? The answer lies right in our cells, and I promise it brings more hope than you think. Pour yourself a hot cup of coffee and sit down here with me. Let's decode this mystery together. If I told you that the hormone often compared to fuel for football players is also quietly flowing in the veins of the gentlest women, would you believe me? Think about Susan, a retired teacher friend of mine in Florida. Last weekend when we met, she told me about her recent trip to Costco. Susan stood hesitating in front of a pack of mineral water, trying to lift it into her shopping cart, and suddenly felt a slight emptiness in her chest. It wasn't just because her arms had grown weaker, but because she felt the abundant energy she once had was now running out. She always thought testosterone was her husband's thing, the thing that made men strong. But my dear friend, the truth is that a woman's body also produces testosterone from the ovaries and adrenal glands, though in smaller amounts than men. It's like a quiet old friend, helping you maintain muscle mass, strong bone density, and even your passion for life. When we pass the age of 50, the decline or imbalance of this old friend doesn't just make carrying groceries at the supermarket feel heavier, it also sends extremely confusing signals to your hair follicles. But here's the strange thing that might surprise you. Why does the same hormone, when imbalanced, cause the hair on your crown to thin out, but stimulate hair growth in places you don't want, like on your face? The answer lies in an extremely sophisticated chemical reaction right inside our skin cells, where this good friend suddenly gets transformed. Before we expose the shapeshifter behind this paradox, if you feel these shares help you understand your body better and reduce your anxiety, please take a second to hit the subscribe button. Your warm support is the greatest motivation for me to keep sharing these stories. Back to Susan, she didn't know that the testosterone in her body doesn't naturally cause hair loss. It needs an accomplice. It's like sending a loving letter, but on the way through the mail, someone rewrote the content into a completely different message. In our bodies, there's an enzyme that rewrites testosterone into a form that's 5 times stronger, and that's when the trouble begins. It's like sending a letter, but on the way through the mail, someone opened it and rewrote the content into a completely different message. Our bodies sometimes do the same with hormones, and that's the story of Margaret. Margaret, a 62-year-old friend of mine living in sunny Texas, shared a very touching moment. One weekend afternoon, as she sat on her porch flipping through an old photo album of 4th of July BBQs, she suddenly paused at a picture taken 20 years ago. Her hair back then was so thick and voluminous, so different from the thin, sparse feeling on her crown now. Margaret told me in confusion, "I take all kinds of expensive vitamins. I take such good care of it, but my hair keeps leaving. Did I do something wrong?" The truth is, Margaret didn't do anything wrong. The problem lies in the fact that the old friend, testosterone we just mentioned, when it enters the cell, encounters a special catalyst, the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, and gets converted into a completely new form, dihydrotestosterone, or DHT for short. If testosterone is a polite guest, then DHT is like a much more powerful shapeshifter. DHT binds extremely tightly to receptors in the body, and when this storm passes through the sensitive scalp area, it causes your hair follicles to shrink, miniaturization. Instead of producing healthy hair strands, the follicles can only create thin, weak strands of fuzz that eventually fall out. But hold on, have you ever wondered why the same shapeshifter DHT causes hair on your head to fall out, but can also stimulate hair growth in places you completely don't want? Why does our body have this ironic discrimination? The answer lies in the secret locks on your skin, which decide whether DHT will be an enemy or a friend. Let's step into Patricia's story to decode this mystery. Have you ever wondered why our bodies sometimes behave so ironically? Why does it take away the precious strands of hair where we desperately want to keep them, but generously gives extra coarse hairs where we only want to hide them? This question reminds me of Patricia, a friend of mine who works in a busy office in New York. Patricia is 55 this year, and every morning before rushing out to catch the subway into central Manhattan, she has a small but anxious ritual. Standing close to the bathroom mirror, tweezers in hand, trying to find and pluck a few stubborn, coarse hairs that have just sprouted on her chin. At the office, before every important meeting, she sneaks into the restroom, checks herself under the bright fluorescent lights to make sure no uninvited guests have appeared on her face. That feeling of anxiety mixed with embarrassment is so real, and I want you to know that if you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. What's happening here? We've talked about DHT, the powerful shapeshifter from testosterone, but DHT can't cause trouble on its own. It needs an accomplice, or more precisely, a place to settle. Those are the androgen receptors, AR, or in simple terms, the locks on the surface of hair follicle cells. Here's the interesting yet paradoxical point I want you to understand clearly. It's the same key called DHT, but when it fits into the lock on the scalp, it sends the signal time to rest, causing the hair follicles to shrink and stop producing hair. But on the contrary, when the same key fits into the lock on the chin or upper lip area, it sends the signal grow strong. The density and sensitivity of these locks differ in each skin area, and that's why Patricia faces this ironic situation. But Patricia's story doesn't stop at the tweezers or genetics. There's another factor, silent and invisible, that's pouring oil on the fire every time she worries about her appearance before meetings. Could that everyday stress be the trigger that activates this chaos even more strongly? Let's find the answer in the next part, where we'll explore an invisible storm that you might be facing every day too. Patricia's story about the unwanted changes on her face immediately reminded me of an afternoon visit to Brenda, a 51-year-old friend living in this quiet suburb. I found Brenda sitting dazed at the kitchen table covered with her elderly mother's medical bills, next to a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The distant sound of an ambulance siren was enough to make her shoulders tense unconsciously. Brenda wasn't just worried about her mother. She was also carrying the burden of her husband's high blood pressure. She confided that every time she washed her hair, large clumps fell out, and she wondered if she had chosen the wrong shampoo. But in reality, the culprit isn't in the shampoo bottle, but an invisible storm inside our bodies, starting from a system called the HPA axis. When you face pressure, whether it's traffic jams or financial worries, a part of the brain called the amygdala sends an alarm signal to the hypothalamus, which acts as the command center. Immediately, the sympathetic nervous system is activated like a car's gas pedal pressed to the floor, pumping adrenaline and then cortisol into the blood to give you energy to deal with danger. The problem is, with persistent daily worries, Brenda's engine keeps running at too high a level for too long without rest. When your body is flooded with cortisol, it switches to survival mode and starts cutting energy from places it considers non-essential. And sadly, hair is often the first to be sacrificed. Even worse, high cortisol levels can suppress gonadal function, further disrupting the already fragile hormonal balance at this age. Have you ever felt exhausted even without doing heavy work just from worrying? That's when this storm is quietly taking away the vitality of your hair. But how do we release the gas pedal and turn off that overheating engine when night falls so the body can truly heal? If you want to know the secret to recovering the energy we often accidentally lose every evening, please comment, "I'm ready for healthier hair." And if these shares touch your heart, please hit like, so I have more motivation to continue the story about the healing rhythm in the next part. Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling and listening to the heater humming in the quiet night, wondering why sleep is so difficult? That feeling is truly lonely, and I want to share with you the story of Nancy, a 56-year-old neighbor of mine who once struggled with exactly this every day. Nancy is a dedicated night shift nurse who always puts her patients' health first. But when she comes home in the morning and pulls down the thick curtains to find sleep, the outside world is too noisy. The neighbor's lawnmower, the traffic, all of it seems to be against her. Nancy confided in me once when we met in the supermarket parking lot that she felt like she was out of sync with the whole world. And what saddened her most wasn't just the fatigue, but her hair becoming increasingly dry and lifeless every time she brushed it before her shift. Our bodies have a wonderful invisible clock called the circadian rhythm. When the sun sets, this clock signals the body to produce melatonin so we can rest and recover. But for people like Nancy, or simply when you stay up late watching TV or scrolling on your phone, the blue light from the screen tricks the brain into thinking it's still daytime. Did you know that this rhythm disruption not only makes you tired, but also prevents the natural maintenance process of the hair follicles, making them weak because they don't get fully regenerated? Sleep deprivation doesn't just steal your energy, it also keeps cortisol, the stress hormone we talked about, elevated even when you're lying in bed. It's like trying to repair a house while the storm is still raging outside. Nancy started changing by creating a ritual before bed, turning off all electronic devices and respecting her body's rhythm more. Her hair, like her smile, gradually regained its vitality. But sleep is only one part of the hormonal balance picture. There's another factor, one we often resent every time we step on the scale, that's playing a secret and extremely important role in preserving your femininity. Let's explore this surprising thing in the next story. Nancy's story and those sleepless nights reminded me of Carol, a neighbor who lives right at the corner of the street. Carol is 53 this year and is in a fierce battle with her own body to prepare for her daughter's wedding next month. Every morning, as I'm watering the front lawn, I see Carol and her friends power walking around the neighborhood, sweating profusely, and their conversations always revolve around one topic: how to lose weight the fastest to fit into the evening gown. Carol cut out everything, completely eliminating fats, but the strange thing is that even though her waist got a little smaller, her hair became drier and fell out more than ever. You know, we often have a very harsh view of excess fat, seeing it as the number one enemy of beauty, but there's an interesting truth that few people notice. At this age, those fat cells are not just passive energy storage warehouses, they are actually a secret and extremely important hormone factory. Inside the fat cells is a special enzyme called aromatase. Imagine aromatase as a skilled jeweler diligently converting testosterone, the powerful hormone we talked about in the previous part, into estradiol, a form of estrogen that nourishes soft hair and maintains femininity. When the ovaries have retired, this factory in the fat tissues becomes the main source of estrogen to protect your hair. Carol's overly strict dieting unintentionally forced the craftsman aromatase to stop working, causing a serious drop in estrogen and leaving free testosterone to cause chaos. So the question is, does that mean we should just eat freely to keep our hair, or is balance the key? And is there another free natural factor right in the backyard that we've accidentally overlooked? The answer lies in a gift from the sky that Carol is carefully shielding every time she goes out, which I'll reveal right after this. Remember the image of Carol power walking for health in the previous part? That immediately reminded me of Diane, a 60-year-old friend of mine living in Texas. Diane has a beautiful garden in her backyard where she grows the juiciest tomatoes I've ever seen. But there's a paradox here. Diane loves her garden, but fears sunlight. Every time she steps outside to water the plants, she wears a wide-brimmed hat that covers her face and slathers on thick sunscreen because she's afraid of wrinkles and skin problems. She had no idea that this overprotection was unintentionally cutting off the energy her hair was craving. Did you know that the warm feeling when sunlight touches your shoulders isn't just temperature? It's a miraculous chemical reaction happening. When UVB rays from the sun hit the skin, they transform a natural form of cholesterol, 7-dehydrocholesterol, into vitamin D3. Vitamin D is actually not just a vitamin, it acts like an important prohormone that helps the body absorb calcium and maintain cell development. But here's what you need to note. When we pass the age of 50, the skin's ability to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight decreases significantly compared to when we were young. Add to that the modern lifestyle where we spend most of our time indoors or shield ourselves too carefully, and many of us are living in a serious sun starvation state. Could your thinning hair be a silent cry for help due to the lack of this gift from the sun? The good news is you don't need to bake yourself for hours under harsh sunlight. Just a little gentle morning sun, or adding fatty fish like salmon or tuna to your dinner, and you can help your hair follicles breathe again. Before we move on, if you like this information, please comment "great hair," and if the video was even a little helpful, please like this video. We've been through a long journey from hormones, sleep, stress, to sunlight. All these pieces seem scattered, but they're actually tightly connected. Do you want to know how to put them together into a simple, easy-to-follow plan you can do at home to bring vitality back to your hair? Let's step into the next part to build an action plan just for you. Knowledge is power, but action is what truly creates miracles. Last Saturday morning, when I stopped by the familiar cafe in the town center, I came across a wonderful sight. Linda, Susan, and Margaret sitting together, chatting and laughing heartily over steaming cups of cappuccino. Gone was the anxiety or the sighs when mentioning their hair. They were excitedly sharing their new action plan for this autumn of life. Susan said she had signed up for a Tai Chi class at the community center every morning. Do you remember the storm of stress and cortisol we talked about when Linda worried about the bills? Those slow movements combined with deep breathing are how Susan creates the relaxation response, so her body can find balance again amid pressure. And Margaret, she admitted that now she treats sleep as an appointment she can't miss. Instead of staying up late watching the news, she turns off the lights early so the biological clock inside her body can be wound up and repair the damage on its own. On their table, next to the muffins, I saw them sharing their new menu, adding salmon to dinner for natural vitamin D, or enjoying some pumpkin seeds rich in zinc instead of sweets. They're not trying to turn back time forcefully. They're just tending to the garden of their bodies with love and patience, providing exactly the nutrients their cells are craving. Maybe right now you're wondering, will these small changes really make a difference for my hair, or is it already too late? Trust me, our bodies have a more miraculous ability to recover than you think, as long as you give them the right tools and time. And you know what? The most wonderful thing in this journey isn't just the hope of seeing new baby hairs grow, but the feeling that you're taking back control of your life. But there's one last thing, the most important piece about true beauty at this age that I want to share with you before we say goodbye. Hello, I'm Alan. Before we close today's story, I want to take you back to Linda, the friend we met at the beginning with her anxiety in front of the bathroom mirror. Now, every morning when she looks in the mirror, she still sees the traces of time, but the confusion has been replaced by a gentle smile. She smiles not because her hair has suddenly thickened like magic, but because she now understands what her body is saying and knows exactly what to do to love it. The most beautiful image of Linda that I want you to remember isn't when she was counting strands of hair in the mirror, but on Thanksgiving evening just past. Amid the aroma of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie, she smiled radiantly with her children and grandchildren, radiating the complete beauty of maturity that no cream or hair growth treatment could ever bring. I want to tell you this, hair may change with the seasons of life, thickness may vary due to the hidden waves of hormones, but the light in a woman's eyes and the warmth in her heart must never be allowed to go out. Your value doesn't lie in the number of strands on your head, but in the confidence, health, and wisdom you've accumulated over the years. The journey to regain balance and vitality for your hair is a long one, and you don't have to walk it alone. If these shares brought you a little warmth and hope, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so we can continue the conversation in the upcoming videos. Thank you for taking your precious time to sit here, listen, and share with me. Always keep the faith and take good care of yourself. See you again, my dear neighbor.